Have dreams of changing the world. Take the limits off for the boys and the girls. Embrace the skin you're in cause you're born to win. Imagine God's love although you're born to sin. I tell them, imagine that and imagine me. I wanna inspire the kids to dream like a Miss Vicki. Keep the faith even when it gets tricky. Know that we run this like DMC, so please don't compare me to no sucking MCs. Imagine that and imagine me. Being everything I was born to be. Imagine that and imagine me.
Tell the people of the world to go higher.
Thank you for tuning in to Imagine That with Miss Vicki. Welcome, welcome, welcome to this week's show. Oh my goodness. I am beyond excited to have Mr. Peter Brodsky, who would rather be known as Peter. And my co-host today is Eric Lockhart. Y'all, it is my prayer that you will not only watch and listen to this show today, but I want you to be inspired enough to support the movement that is going on by Mr. Brodsky and his team. I want you to be inspired enough to not only bring Redbird back, but I want you to be inspired to shop Redbird. I want you to be inspired enough to move back to the area. I want you to be inspired enough to give back to the community that we love. I know you guys remember Brothers Pizza. I know you remember Oak Tree. I know you remember New York and Company and all those other stores that we enjoyed so much growing up. Guys, come on. Hit share on your Facebook page right now so that your friends and their friends can all watch and join in this conversation. If you have any questions that you would like to send in, please do that now. Mr. Brodsky, Peter Brodsky, is an open book and he's waiting to hear from you. Yes, he wants to know what the community of Redbird Mall or of Redbird has to say. So please tune in now. Well, welcome back. I hope you guys enjoyed those commercials. We are back again with Mr. Brodsky and Eric Lockhart. Prayerfully, you hit that share button, and we're going to go ahead and allow for Mr. Peter Brodsky to introduce himself and tell a little bit about himself. I know you guys are waiting to know who is this masked man who is coming to revitalize Oak Cliff. Talk to us, Mr. Brodsky. What would you like the people to know about who you are?
Well, first, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be here, to spend a little time with you. And you're right, I do care very much what the community thinks. This is a community asset, and what we're trying to do is return it really to a place of pride in the community. And we can't do that if we're not doing what the community wants. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Very good. Thank you.
You know, I'm 47 years old. It's hard to summarize my life in 2 minutes or less. But I'm from New York City originally. I grew up there, went to college, and ended up in a career in business that brought me to Dallas. in 1995.
Yes.
I expected I'd stay a year, maybe 2 years, but the combination of a good job and I met my wife here, I realized I was going to be spending my life in Dallas, and so we've been here ever since. I've been married to my wife, Lael, for 20 years. We've got 3 kids, 18, 16, and 13. And, buying and redeveloping this mall is the most exciting thing I've ever done professionally, and it's really more than professional now. It's very personal.
Oh, very good. Great introduction. So I guess the next big question on everybody's mind is, okay, Peter, why? Why Redbird? Why would you put and invest so much time and effort into an area that seems to be just dying off? Why Redbird and why now?
Well, I think there's 2 answers to to that question. The first answer is a simple one. It's the answer about why invest. I've spent. Well, let me go back for a minute. I spent about the first 15 years of my life in Dallas, really focused on my career, my family. I was head down, tail up for a long time. I really didn't get to know the city very well. And around 2009, I took the Leadership Dallas class. And through that class, I discovered that there were huge portions of the city that I knew nothing about. And it really made me like Dallas a lot better, made me love Dallas, much more diverse, much more textured, much richer culturally than I had previously understood. And I got involved in Southern Dallas philanthropically. What happened then was that I started spending a lot of time in Southern Dallas, and I began to notice that some of my friends in North Dallas had these, what I thought were very incorrect perceptions of Southern Dallas. They would say things like, "Oh, I don't want to drive there," or "Are you afraid to walk from your car to the building?"
Wow.
And that is the result of a lot of things. There's a lot of history there. But it occurred to me after a while that there was an incorrect perception of the city, of this part of the city, and therefore there was an investment opportunity, because if people don't understand it, it's not going to be priced properly. There's an anecdote. A guy in my Leadership Dallas class was having a conversation with a woman in my Leadership Dallas class, and she's African American and from Southern Dallas, and she was explaining to him that at the time there were no IHOPs in Southern Dallas, and rather than look at that and say, well, let's think about why that could be, what were the forces that caused that to happen, his answer was, well, maybe black people don't like pancakes.
Oh, wow.
And that was the first sign to me that, boy, there's a market opportunity here, because if that's what the conventional wisdom is, that's crazy.
Right.
And so the long way of saying why Redbird, because I think there's a real investment opportunity here. There is a market. There is a market of people who want quality amenities. They want quality retail. They want quality restaurants. They want quality family entertainment. They want quality office space. They want quality residential. They want a quality hotel. And in the area, that demand exists. That market exists. But the supply doesn't exist.
Right.
There aren't those amenities. People have to drive to North Park or the parks at Arlington or Town East or Cedar Hill. And so that's what I think the market opportunity is, which is why I wanted to invest.
Okay.
Can I keep going?
Oh,
or do you have
yes,
another
yes,
question?
yes. Go
okay.
on.
That's one half of it. That's kind of the for-profit part. There's a nonprofit part of it as well.
Okay.
There's a civic. Actually, civic would be a better way to put it, which is that there are lots of ways to make money off of that investment opportunity, and not all of them are good for the community. And so, because of the work that I have done in Southern Dallas, I really, and I can't explain exactly why it is, but there's something about it that really resonates with me, that I care about it and I don't want to do something negative. And so the commitment that I've made is that this is definitely for profit. This is an investment because I believe that the community can support and deserves these quality amenities. But I'm not going to pursue this development in a way if it's not positive for the community.
Excellent, excellent. I watched a video that of a meeting that you held when you first purchased the mall, and one thing that stood out to me was the fact that you stated that you would not flip this mall, or
Correct.
this is not something that you're seeking to flip. So you're in it for the long haul.
So
Yes.
let me intervene real quick. So there's been several previous owners. I think when the mall was really thriving, the Bartolo out of San Francisco owned it. Their group owned the mall when it was Redbird, when it was vibrant.
Yep.
Since then, there might have been 6 previous
I don't even
owners.
know how
or
many.
no
A
many.
lot.
Yeah. What do you think was, just looking at it from a business standpoint or from a historical standpoint, as you come with your transformation plan? Why do you think those prior attempts or those changeovers have been unsuccessful as far as making it back vibrant?
Well, I'm not sure that anybody ever intended to make it back vibrant. I think that the business model of the previous owners was generally to milk it. The mall is still open. The mall is profitable. You can suck out a lot of cash from this mall if you want to, and you don't have to put much back in. And I would say that generally, the attitude of the owners in the past, they were all out of town owners, and generally this was a financial investment. It was an asset that was cash flowing, and they were looking to maximize the cash flow, and they were not necessarily looking to reinvest that cash flow for a longer term play. That's part of the answer. The other part of the answer is that even with the intention of redeveloping, it was almost impossible to execute. And the reason for that is that it's not, I think, well known or understood, but the mall itself, the owner of the mall, is just the inline portion of the mall. It's just the small shops. It's not the large department store anchors. And it is also a very small minority of the parking fields. So when I bought the mall back in 2015, I bought 28 acres of splotches of parking lot plus the 325,000 square feet of indoor mall. But I didn't own the Macy's, the old Dillard's, the old J.C. Penney, the Burlington, the Sears, or any of the parcels outside the ring road that abut Camp Wisdom and Westmoreland and the 2 highways. So if that's all you own, you can't do anything. You can't redevelop, make the inside of the mall fabulous when the anchors aren't fabulous. And you can't just redo little splotches of the parking lot.
Right.
And so one of the so there really was nothing anyone could do. What we've done over the last 2 years is done 10 different acquisitions so that we now own not all of it, but 78 acres of that property. That's enough to really do something, and it's the first time ever that that's been actionable.
Great. And I think a lot of times when people hear, someone bought the mall, and a lot of it is because of past purchases, that they think just that, okay, you're going to change the name, you may bring 1 or 2 elements, and that's it. But when we start talking about revitalizing, redevelopment, re means to do over, not to bring back what once was. Can you kind of give a little insight of what you guys plan on doing from a revitalization of that mall and why you're able to make these major changes that's never been done in the past?
Sure. So, when we first bought the mall, I'm going to agree and disagree with what you just said. Re means do over, not go back to the past. That's true. But it has always been our goal to go back to the past in one respect here, which is that Redbird was the center of the community.
Yes.
The way you just talked about Redbird Mall and the way we were talking about it beforehand, it means something to people.
Yes.
And it means something to people because it was a place where families could gather, kids could go play, everybody felt welcome. It was the mall of this community.
Yes.
We do want to go back to that. And we do want to go back to the quality experience that people had. So in that sense, we are trying to take it back. However, we all know that malls are dying. It has nothing to do with where the mall is. They're dying all over the country. They're dying because the department stores are dying, and the department stores are historically what has driven the traffic to the malls. Well, I don't know about you, but I ordered all my Christmas presents in bed on my laptop.
Yes.
And it probably will be delivered by drone in a couple of years. And so retail is changing.
Right.
And so in order to make Redbird a vibrant place for there to be some retail, you have to find other amenities that are going to drive people to the site, because Macy's is not driving people to the site.
Right.
So what are those? You can live there, you can work there, you can go to the doctor there, you can stay at a hotel there, you can go catch a movie, go to a restaurant, hang out in the park. We've even talked to a museum about having a space there. We're talking to a couple of different colleges about having some space there. So what we're trying to do is bring in all these different uses to the site with the expectation that when people are there, they will then also go buy a T-shirt or a bracelet or whatever people will do in the retail portion of the mall. But the most important thing is that we want it to be a gathering place for the community. There's this whole art and science that I was totally unaware of called placemaking. And we spend a lot of time with our architecture firm talking about placemaking. And we're trying to do that here, create spaces that will draw people in, because once you get people into the space, it's going to be successful.
And we saw a few of the drawings of the redevelopment piece, and I think in one of our promos we said not only did he buy the mall, but he bought the parking lot. So can you kind of explain to the people why that parking lot is so important? Because if you go up there now, there's a new Starbucks, not taking over an existing building, but there's a new Starbucks being constructed on the parking lot. And as we talk about pad sites that's tied to parking lots, explain to us why that's important, that you own the majority of the parking lot and what that allows you to do with this space.
Well, the first reason it's important is because nobody wants it to just be a parking lot anymore. You know, 70s era malls were inward-facing buildings surrounded by a sea of parking. The types of environments that people want to hang out in today are urban, they're dense, there's great people watching, you can walk around, there's green spaces, they're much more active, and they're outward-facing. And so if you don't own the parking lot, you can't change the parking lot. And so, you know, the Starbucks is a perfect example. That was actually a piece of the Macy's parking lot. We got that when we bought the Macy's building. It came with about, I think, 12 or 13 acres. And, you know, that's a great spot. It's right at the front of the development. And it's a great spot to put a very high-quality amenity that the community wants right there. And it's going to activate that part rather than just people driving by it. People will stop, they'll linger, they'll meet, they'll commune. If you look at the drawings we've got right in front of the development, right at the entrance, we've got an acre of green space.
It's gorgeous.
And surrounded, but what we expect is that it'll be surrounded by restaurants. So that's much more attractive than a parking lot. But again, if you don't own that parking lot, you're kind of stuck.
Awesome.
And you talk about the new development and, you know, revitalization. Is there other models that you've seen that you're looking at that this would be this project is modeled after?
Sure. So I would say there's two aspects to the project. There's the aspect of turning an old regional mall into a mixed-use development. There are countless examples of that all over the country because every mall is dealing with this. there's a few Class A malls like North Park. They're going to be just fine. Right. They don't
Right.
need to convert, but most of the malls in the country need to figure out how to reinvent themselves.
Right.
There's a lot of different examples to look to, and we're very happy to rip off any of those ideas and apply them here. And frankly, that's why I wanted to work with OmniPlan as architects, because they do this all over the country, in addition to having done the North Park expansion. So they're best in class architects. And then my development partners at Corinth Properties, Frank Mialopoulos and Terrence Maiden, they were the perfect partners for this because they are also redeveloping malls all over the country. And as an added bonus, Terrence is from Oak Cliff, went to Carter High School, has a deep commitment to the community. So I digressed, but there are lots of models to look at. The other aspect of this is the concept of proving that a mall in a predominantly African American community can support quality retail. That is a shockingly difficult argument to make to retailers, and there's a host of reasons why. We all know what they are. But there is a presumption that if it's in an African American community, it is not going to be able to financially support quality retail. Well, if you look at the demographics, you know that to be untrue. And so for that, we looked to a mall in LA called the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza Mall. I got to know the developer a little bit at the very beginning of the process, and he was kind enough to invite me and a colleague out to see. And that was a mall that very, very similar to this in that it bordered both a very affluent African American community and a much less affluent African American community, and it served both. And when he got involved with it, it really was in terrible shape. There were crime problems. There was no quality retail, and he led a revitalization of it that brought the quality retail back in, and it's been very successful. So I'm looking to both models. He actually kept it a mall. In that case, that made sense. But yes, there are examples.
Okay. And while we're talking about that,
Sure.
in the video, the promo video that Eric and I did, I spoke of Redbird being Redbird Mall. I was corrected prior to the show somewhat. Talk to us about it no longer being Redbird Mall, but Redbird.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. The name here. The name here is really important.
Yes.
So first of all, right now, the name of the mall is Southwest Center Mall. And interestingly, it has been called Southwest Center Mall for almost as long as it was called Redbird.
Really?
Yep. It was changed in 1998. So it was 24 years as Redbird and 20 years as Southwest Center Mall. But nobody calls it Southwest Center Mall. It's never been accepted by the community.
That's true.
So when I first got involved here, I really wanted to get feedback from the community. We did a lot of community meetings and continue to. Everything from one-on-one to, meetings with 150 people. And in every meeting I asked, should we A, keep it Southwest Center Mall, B, change the name to something totally new, or C, go back to Redbird? And you know what the answer was every time.
Yes.
It was all unanimous Redbird.
Redbird, y'all.
Redbird. It's
Redbird.
So we decided we were going to go back to Redbird, and we were going to stop running away from it. And, just to be very transparent here, the word Redbird has some baggage, not in the community, but in the retail community. Redbird Mall is routinely referred to as Deadbird and Blackbird.
Wow.
So that is how it is known in the retail community. So because of the history here. So there is baggage to it, but the community embraces it so much, we decided to kind of turn the tables on the baggage and say, we're going to take it back and be proud of who we are.
Right.
And make sure that you retailers and the market in general understand that your perception is wrong, and we're going to take back ownership of that brand.
And let's talk about part of that perception. Also, in one of the meetings that you held, somebody spoke of the crime in that area, and you corrected them by saying that's a misconception. talk to us about what your research showed, or you found in your research about the crime at that mall.
I will, but I got to finish one thing.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. On the mall thing.
Yes.
It won't be Redbird Mall because it's not going to be a mall. There will still be retail. There will still be indoor retail, but it's going to be so much bigger than a mall.
Yes.
So right now we're calling it Reimagine Redbird. When the work is done, we will christen it something else, but it will still be Redbird will be the dominant name.
Okay. Love it.
Back to the crime. Yeah. So there is a perception of crime at Redbird at the mall, and we actually have the lowest crime rate of any indoor mall in the Metroplex. Lowest crime rate of any indoor mall in the Metroplex. Now, why is that? We don't have as many patrons,
Right.
So there's some of fun with numbers there. We spend a lot of money on security, but the fact of the matter is there just isn't as much crime as what people think. And I've got a couple anecdotes about that. First of all, people get shot in the North Park parking lot every now and then.
Right.
It's happened. Nobody thinks North Park is ridden with crime. If the smallest incident happens within 5 miles of this mall, there's a news story about, shots fired at Redbird.
Right.
And so there is, I think, a tendency of the media to emphasize the negative and make it seem worse than it is. There's crime all over this city, but there's nothing particular about Redbird. And we are vigilant about it. And we really don't have, knock on wood, we don't have a crime problem. The example I want to give is that we had an event at the mall where we invited people from all over the city. It was an organization that was hosting a meeting there. And I welcomed everyone, and I talked about our whole effort to change the incorrect perceptions. And then I had to go, and I left. And about half an hour later, I got a phone call, and I was informed that one of the participants her car had been stolen out of the parking lot. And I said, there is a 0% chance that happened.
Wow.
It is 11:30 in the morning. It is a beautiful, bright blue skied Saturday morning. There are people all around, and we haven't had a car stolen out of that parking lot as long as I've been around. That didn't happen. And what I said was, she's going to figure out that she just forgot where she parked her car. But because it's at Redbird, she assumed that it was stolen. And that's exactly what happened.
And while we're on the subject of
Wow.
perceptions, and we have a few businesses in the southern sector that are vibrant and doing very well, from grooming salons to real estate, residential construction company. So we know from being from that area that there's profitability, that there's great people, that there's income, that there's money in the South, and people have been sleeping on it. But one of the big perceptions, and when you bring up this subject talking about the mall, is customer service. How are you going to maintain it? And what happens, a lot of people from the South go to North Park, go to Galleria every day, Vista Ridge, or whatever you want to name it, and that's where they're spending their dollars versus putting it back into their community. But the big reason is the perception is customer service. You don't get service in the South. You can go out north, you get customer service, but you can't get customer service in the South. And what they provide in the South are not the same things that they provide out north. You've been in Dallas for 19 years, and you've seen different parts of it, been involved in different parts of it. What do you say about that perception, or why do you think that exists? And big thing, how will you plan to overcome that perception in order to bring people into the new center?
I mean, that's a very that's a deep question, and I don't have a simplistic answer. I do think that it is true that the service levels are different. I've heard from enough people who tell me that when the big department stores were open, because the Dillards and the JCPenney and the Macy's have all closed, they would go there and they would just find different merchandise than they would find at North Park. Do we have a time?
Yeah, we are
Hold
about
that
to
note,
go
though.
to
This is
commercial,
good, yeah.
but I want you to hold that
Yep.
thought.
And we'll
Hold that
come back
thought.
after commercial.
And we're going to come back after commercial. We need to pay a few bills here. We'll be right back. We left off with Peter Brodsky discussing the customer service or the level of customer service in the South. We're going to allow him to finish his thought and, continue these conversations about customer service in the Southern sector.
Yeah. So thanks. What I was saying was that I've heard from enough people that I know it must be true that just the merchandise was different, the level of service was different, and I think that's one of the reasons why the mall declined. And so I believe that is an issue. I don't have a magic wand to wave that where I can. Where I can say, here's my 10-point plan for ensuring customer service. What I can tell you is that the entire tone of our development and what I talk about with my team all the time on a daily basis at the mall is I want every interaction with a customer, a tenant, a vendor. I want people to leave that interaction feeling respected and honored. We may not always agree. It may be a tenant who's late on his rent. Everyone has to leave feeling respected and honored. And all I can do, we haven't gotten to the point yet where we're, talking about whether we'll put provisions in the leases about levels of service. I think that would be difficult to do. But we want to set a tone where that is what's expected. And then we're going to have to that's why it's important that it's local ownership, because I think only local ownership and some intensive management can police that. And then we're going to have to, when there are incidences where we don't accomplish that, we're going to have to address them quickly.
Now, I saw one interview that I thought was pretty interesting. Right now, you have a large number of tenants that are family-owned businesses, and which is basically supporting the mall to the point where the mall is still in the black. It's still profitable at this point. And there may be some reason why the crime is a little low too, because a lot of times when you get those family businesses, it's more of a closer network that look out for one another. But it was something about an incubator. So how in the whole deal, our philosophy has always been, if you're going to be able to change a community or change an environment, it starts with education. And it starts with economics. And we kind of talked about your education, because I don't think you ever planned on, from a college standpoint, diving into business. I think you went to Yale and you majored in Russian literature.
Yes.
So kind of twofolds. Kind of tell us how you first got into Russian literature at Yale, and how that transferred over to business. And then I just want you to speak about what you put in place from an educational standpoint and a support standpoint to help businesses and not only the community grow from those two elements.
Great. Okay, that's a very broad question, so I may be talking for a little bit. Just give me a gong or a
We'll
tap
guide
if I need to stop. I am a big believer that the most important thing you can learn to do in college is learn how to think and write. If you can think and you can write, you can learn every other skill you need to learn on the job, or in subsequent schooling. And so for me, when I was picking a major in college, it was really about what was just going to be interesting to me intellectually, I knew that if I was interested in it, I would learn to think and write. And I was interested in Russian because it was when Gorbachev was, in power and all of Russia was changing and perestroika and glasnost, and I love to read and I love languages. That turned out to be an incredibly important experience for me, by the way, and it gave me lessons that I use every day in Southern Dallas, because I then lived in Russia for a year. And I lived in Russia right after the Soviet Union fell apart. And I had been raised in America, and my perspective was, oh, you Russians must be so happy that your country fell apart because it was the evil empire, et cetera. And of course, nobody was happy that their country fell apart. They were patriots. They were suffering economically. There was a spike in crime. And what I learned was, just because I think something doesn't mean everybody thinks it. Wow. And just because I look at an event with a certain perspective doesn't mean that everybody does. Well, Southern Dallas has had people who live in Southern Dallas have had a lot of experiences that I haven't had, and they look at events very differently than I might, informed by that experience. So, what I used to say during all these community meetings when I first started was, I am absolutely sure that the prospect of a white guy from North Dallas buying up your prized asset doesn't fill you with joy, that it fills you with wondering how you're going to get screwed here.
Right.
And that's what once we could talk on that level, I think we were able to build trust.
Right.
So anyway, that's how I got into Russian. I'm really glad I did, because even though I can't speak Russian very well anymore, I learned a lot of life lessons that were very important. Awesome. The way I got interested in education was really a lesson that my grandfather taught me. He was a very, very successful economist. And I once asked him what was the key to his success. And he proceeded to list off a list of things that had nothing to do with him. Well, I was born at this time. Wow. I was born a white male. My parents had money. I was provided the best education. If you couldn't, then I went off to the war. And if you couldn't make money in investing in the 1950s with the background I had, you were, and he went on and on and on. And it was all about luck and timing. Wow. And that really resonated with me. And so I've been involved with K-12 education in Southern Dallas for about 7 years through KIP, the high-performing network of charter schools. And what drives me there is that there's a bunch of kids there that have every bit as much talent as my kids do, but totally different opportunities. And I really wanted to help make sure that they would be given the opportunities to prove what they could do. Right. The same is true of businesses. If you don't have access to capital, if you don't have access to mentorship, if you don't know how to incorporate, if you never learned financial literacy, it's really hard to run a business. I heard this in community meetings. One of the top things people asked for in community meetings was some kind of business incubator space. And so we went out and we partnered with the DEC, the Dallas Entrepreneur Center, which has, I think, around 10 incubator spaces throughout the Metroplex, but none were in Southern Dallas. Right. And they will be our first office tenant at the mall. We're going to turn the entire second floor of the mall into offices, and they are currently renovating their space. They're going to have about a 7,000 square foot space. And they've hired a general manager, Michelle Williams, to program that space with mentors and lectures and networking groups. So it's a shared office space, but with supports for entrepreneurs. So we hope that it helps create a whole generation of companies based in Southern Dallas.
Awesome. I think that is awesome.
Yeah, because that was one of my questions, was because from the town hall meetings, from what we've seen and what we've heard, you seem to really focus on the business talent that is already in that area. And so my question was, what opportunities would this particular project bring to those people, those entrepreneurs that live and that have already put their time and effort into that community? What can we see from that?
Well, I think the deck, the Redbird deck, is one of them. I mean, we're a retail space. Depending on the type of the type of business they have, there may be an opportunity with us. We already have over 100 businesses. Most of them are moms and pops, and so what we're not going to be is all things to all people.
Right.
And at the end of the day, this has to make money, or it won't work. And so we can't, not everything we do is going to be about supporting the community. A lot of what we do is about supporting the community, and a lot of that support can end up being profitable for everyone. And then we're going to try like heck to get Victoria's Secret to come.
Yes.
To the mall, which won't be supporting local entrepreneurship, but it'll satisfy a demand that we've heard a lot from the community.
Right. I told you my best friend I see is tuned in, and she's texting me as we speak. Nordstrom, Neiman's. I said it, Monica. Okay, you can stop.
I want to manage expectations. First of all, big department stores are not expanding. They are all suffering right now. And second of all, we've got a long way to go before there is enough of a retail track record in this space to be able to attract someone like that.
Right.
Because right now they're saying, show me the comparables. Show me another store at my price point in this community that works. And I keep saying, there are none.
Right.
That doesn't mean it won't work, but they're going to want to see proof points. So we're going to have to start providing proof points with the smaller stores and build to that.
And I think what's pretty interesting about your model is the ecosystem that you're building within it. So when you start talking about living places, apartments, or lofts, we talk about a hotel being there, and then we're talking about a large section of the mall being dedicated to businesses as far as them locating there, which in itself builds a whole new environment or a thriving part of the environment that kind of supports itself. Can you kind of expound on the concept?
I mean, that's the beauty of mixed use is that the apartment dweller goes out to eat. The wait staff may want to live nearby. The same with the offices. Everybody needs to go buy a T-shirt at one of the stores. So the hotel residents will come eat, or they'll go shop. It's all very symbiotic, and that's the whole idea behind mixed use. And so what we're trying to do is become a center of activity in the community that is partially driven by sort of self-driven, the office. For instance, you get a big office tenant, you're going to have no problem opening up restaurants.
Right.
Office tenants aren't enough to make the restaurants survive, but they'll be enough to get the restaurants to open, and then folks in the community will come and also patronize the restaurants. Then you got a great lunch business and a great dinner business. Right. So it is all very symbiotic, and it's all about starting the activity and then having the community benefit from and enjoy the amenities that are there. Then you're proving out a marketplace. Then the guy who's developing the old Sack and Save property just up 67 can say, see, look, it's already proven at Redbird that this is viable. And so now, but they're out of room, so now you can come to this development, or he may go ahead of me. But the idea is to offer the proof point.
Right. And I think just from being in that area and being in business, and I know, and everybody knows from the South, that people have been sleeping on the South. So I think you coming in at this time, especially with the way that the DFW market is transforming, is almost like perfect timing, and it's going to be profitable. However, I can't take the the mantle of speaking for the community. So what oppositions, from my standpoint, I mean, I think it's great and it's going to thrive. And if there's any investment opportunities, we most definitely would dive into it because it's coming more so from your heart, from speaking with you. And it's not just like a hedge fund group coming in to take advantage of an area, flip it and move out. And just listening to you and talking to you, that makes a big difference. But even things being great, there's always some type of opposition. And the sad part, sometimes the opposition comes from some of the people that you're trying to help. So has there been any opposition to this project?
So we've been very fortunate. I think because we've invested a lot of time listening to the community, hearing what people want, and because the vision and the ethos of the project is is committed to being positive for the community, we've had very, very little opposition. I think generally people are on board with a revitalized Redbird. I think the fear is, and the oppositional comments that we've gotten, the fear is the G word, gentrification. It doesn't. You don't have to look very far to see some examples where a developer came in and the result was that people who lived in the community didn't benefit from those amenities. They were displaced by them. And what I say to that is that that's not what we're doing here. And there's a few reasons. The first is that if you look at most of the southern Dallas developments that have occurred, take Trinity Groves, for instance, and don't get me wrong, I go eat there. I think it's terrific, and there's a lot of economic benefit to the city. But that investment was really about, hey, here's a piece of southern Dallas that is super convenient to the north and has great views of downtown. So come dine here and then go back home. And then that has turned into, oh, this is really convenient. Why don't you come live here too?
Right.
And the rents have gone up and people have been displaced. This is a southern Dallas development that is not trying to attract people from the north. This is a southern Dallas where the investment, where the thesis is this community has the means and the desire for these amenities. They just have to drive for them. So what we're trying to do is serve the community that is already there. That's a big, big difference. The second thing is that nobody lives at Redbird Mall. This has always been a commercial development for retail. That's what it's going to continue to be. There will be some apartments, but we're not knocking down houses to build them. It's parking lot right now. And I believe there is a demand for the type of multifamily dwellings that we're creating, because if you are a 20-something and you grew up in the community and you go to church there and your parents live there and it's where you want to live and it's 12 minutes from downtown, but you'd like to have, a higher standard, you want, something like you could get in Uptown, but you want it in Redbird, that product doesn't exist. So I feel like that product is also aimed at this community.
That is a perfect way for us to head into a commercial to pay more bills. We'll be right back as we talk more about what we can do to help this project propel forward.
The Jones Experience Grooming Studio. The look, the feel, the lifestyle. This is not your average or typical barbershop or hair salon. It is an experience. Master barbers, experienced hairstylists, estheticians, nail techs, complimentary drinks, car wash services, the list goes on and on. All headed by Jerome P. Jones, Master Barber. So come and enjoy the look, the feel, and the lifestyle at the Jones Experience Grooming Studio at 4041 West Wheatland Road, Dallas, Texas 75237. For booking info, go to jonesexperiencedallas.com.
All right, we are back from commercial, and Diddy, we heard you. And yes, Mr. Peter Brodsky wants to answer your question on what investment opportunities are you offering people in the community?
Right. So when we first did this, it was really just my wife and me deciding we were going to do it, and we were the only investors. Since then, we have brought in some outside investors, and we have a pretty significant amount of money specifically from the Southern Dallas African American community in the investment on the exact same terms that I'm in on, because we do want there to be a shared benefit. It was made very clear to me at an early community meeting that if this is about, I win, you lose, this was not going to work.
Right.
I've been asked many times about whether we can offer it more broadly. And unfortunately, it's not legal to do that, because if you are offering securities to broadly, you have to register with the SEC. You got to be a public company. So there's very, very strict rules about you have to be a sophisticated investor. I forget the exact term of art, but you have to meet certain criteria of income levels or net worth. And so it's not really possible for me to say, hey, I'm taking $100 or $1,000 investors.
Right.
That, unfortunately, I can't do. But I have tried very hard to raise money from folks in the community that met the SEC requirements.
Okay, perfect. What I want to leave our audience with today is, if there's something that you need from the community, what is it that you need for the community and our viewers to do or to know that would help us or help you in furthering this project? What is it that they can do out there that can help further this project along?
Thanks for asking that. I think the first thing is to just make sure that your representatives know that this is important to you. This is a project that is not going to get done without some help from the city. No new development, be it Uptown or Victory or Valley View or downtown, no new development has ever gotten off the ground without some of those economic incentives. And so if this is something that folks support, they need to let their council members know that this is something that's important to them, that they support. I would say the other thing is patronize the businesses. We may not have a Neiman Marcus right now, but we've got a bunch of great businesses, and we are only going to be improving the offerings. So come give us a try. You won't see much different right now other than the Starbucks. Then come back in a few months, mark our progress, and keep patronizing us. At the end of the day, if commerce isn't done here, this won't succeed.
Right. Well, we want to thank you for coming on the show today and answering some of those questions that our viewers and we had ourselves as community members and business owners in the Redbird area. So we want to just thank you for your time today. And to our audience, I want you all to take Mr. Brodsky's advice and let's give back to our community. Let's figure out what the needs are and let's shop Redbird again. We walked the mall the other day and it was heart-wrenching. I mean, there are still people there trying to help it survive, but it takes more than the few who can afford to still go there or whatnot. It's going to take those people who have moved away to come back and to pour our dollars back into the place that we say we love. If we want to see another Brothers Pizza, if we want that community of love and support, then we ourselves have to give back to it. I know the show was short, but prayerfully the conversation will continue. We'll see you next week. Bye. Hey, friends and family. This is Vicki Lockhart coming to you from Imagine That with Miss Vicki. I just wanted to take a moment out to thank you for tuning in to the show. Hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, and our website, Imagine That with Miss Vicki, actually www.imaginethatwithmissvicky.com. Let us know what topics you'd like to see in the upcoming shows. Tune in Sunday afternoons from 3 to 4. Drop us a line with any questions that you may have or that you want to hear discussed. We want to hear from you. I hope you enjoyed today's show, and thanks for watching. Bye.